to Unsigned 518. I am here with Delaney Hafener of Belle. How's it going?
It's going good.
And I'm, we talked a little bit before we got rolling, but essentially we met like 7 minutes ago, and I kind of gave you the brief rundown of what this is. But I want you to. I want to reiterate that this is your episode, and we want to tell the story how you tell it. And I'm not going to try to steer it or guide you in any direction. But basically, I'm just going to say, how did your relationship with music start, and how did it kind of lead to where we are today?
That's a big question. That is a big one. I don't. It sounds kind of cheesy and cliche, but I really don't remember a time in my life when I wasn't making music. Like genuinely from the time I was like 3 years old.
Okay.
Just like I started like learning piano and voice lessons when I was like 7 or 8. And as soon as I started to learn that kind of music, like learning how to read sheet music and being taught how the notes work, I immediately started writing music. And like we have all of these little like nostalgic keepsakes of like my little sheet music songs that I would write like for the piano. And yeah, even before that, I think that it has always been easier for me to communicate with music than basically anything else.
And was your household, like, I mean, if you had a piano, clearly there was some musicality in it, but was it like a musical household in the traditional sense, or was it?
I think, well, I guess it depends on your definition of traditional, but definitely a musical home. My dad is a guitar player, and he is my guitar player now. He is
nice.
lead guitar in the Belle Curves. So, yeah, so he played for a long time. Even when my older sister was a little kid, and he kind of put the music stuff on the back burner when I was born. He had like a pretty significant vintage guitar collection before I was born that he was like, this is like, his line of thinking was like, oh, this is silly. Like, we have 2 kids now. I can't justify like having all these guitars when I'm not playing. And he like sold a bunch of them. And then, of course, the irony is that it was me then when I was like 12, and I found like he kept a couple of guitars like through that. But I was like 12 or so, and I like fished out one of the more beat up guitars that just kind of stuck around in the basement. It was like a 1930s Gibson that he had actually found in the dumpster. Okay, this is like a little tangent about this particular guitar, but this was, so he had kept, I think, like in that, and he would correct me if I get this wrong. I think I'm getting them correct, but he had a vintage SG and a country and western that stayed in the house through this kind of shift in what he wanted to put his time into. So, and then there was also this old Gibson, this like 1930s Gibson something that he had fished out of a dumpster years earlier. And it was just like this cool like archtop Gibson from the 30s. And so these 3 or 4 guitars just kind of stuck around in the house, and I fished out that archtop, and I was like, can you like put strings on this, and like how, like I want to learn how to play the guitar. And that was around the same time that I decided that I wanted to learn how to play the bass. So he got me set up with these instruments, and I started learning acoustic guitar and bass. He didn't necessarily like teach me in a traditional sense, but he kind of showed me the basics and was extremely encouraging, and my mom was too. And so I was learning all of this stuff kind of parallel to my like school music stuff. So I was a French horn player through all of middle school and high school, and like I was really good. I was like kind of like low-key prodigy French horn player, which like I don't usually talk about because it's just like so like unrelated to all of the band stuff. But I think it's like
Is it that unrelated?
It's not. Yeah, it's like I think it's actually like a really important part of how I make music now because I had this private lesson teacher for my French horn playing, and he was another major part of my musical upbringing because he was very encouraging of me to learn everything that I wanted to. So like we would do the French horn lessons and focus on that stuff specifically, and then we would also he would make time to teach me other stuff. So like if I wanted to learn like theory, he was a big part of teaching me a lot of the music theory that became like the foundation for like my understanding and like of music and like the way that I understand music. And so like all of these things kind of happening all at the same time throughout like my tweens and teen years. And yeah, then I went to SUNY Purchase for studio production and audio recording. And that, even though it was a recording program, it's a music degree. So I took a lot of music courses getting that degree alongside learning all the production stuff.
And did you find, because I like music theory is something that I literally just kind of got into music theory like 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. I started like looking in, but I've been playing guitar my whole life. And if there's one thing that I could change, it would be to learn to learn the theory. But like, that's what, when you were saying like the French horn, how it was like different or, different, but the same, mm-hmm. like how much, and like, this is a genuine question that I don't know, but like mm-hmm. how much of the theory of the French horn and the notes translates directly to guitar and bass?
I mean, well, I have a lot of thoughts about that. I'm trying to think of where I want to start.
Like
to answer your question, like all of it. My feeling is that like I think that kids should be learning music theory the Absolutely. Way that we have, like, just to be like a well-informed adult and like citizen in society. I think that like kids should be learning basic piano and music theory skills.
And it links up to like math and logic.
It's all together. Like, it's good for your brain. And again, like it just like makes you like a well-rounded person, the same way that like having a basic understanding of history makes you a well-rounded person, basic understanding of math. Like it's just part of being a person in the world. So I think that when you learn basics of theory, it makes it very easy to learn other instruments, because like in Western music there's only 12 notes. Right. If you have an understanding of how those notes relate to each other and how to get from one place to another, and like how a chord is created,
and like the circle of fifths, and like all that stuff.
It's the grammar of music. Right. In the same way that like it's really hard to learn a language without having someone teach you the grammatical structures, and then you can fill in the gaps with vocabulary. Like trying to learn an instrument without the theory knowledge is like trying to learn a language with only vocabulary.
That's a great way to look at it. Because like I said, I wish I had the theory, because I was always like kind of, I was a skate punk rock kid, and I was kind of, and going back now, I'm like, every fucking punk rock band mm-hmm. is adhering to music theory. Every single one of them.
Again, because they're using like Western music.
It's the language. Because if
like
they weren't,
and
it's
like
gibberish.
You can learn. There are so many ways to organize the music too. Is another thing that I think about, and something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize. Like, yes, there's like classical music way of organizing the notes and notating the notes, and like the sheet music and scores and stuff, and that's like very complex to learn. But there's also like the way that like charts are written, like using like the Roman numeral system and solfegging, which is like kind of where my brain usually goes, because it makes it very easy to change keys, and like that kind of comes back to my like folk music background and like my folk music interest. It makes it very easy to go from one key to another, because if you're like, okay, 1 minor 6 major 4, you can do that if you know
the language.
Yeah, if you have the grammar, then it's just vocabulary and you just have to like swap out the words.
Yeah.
And then there's also like, again, like the actual like letter names of the notes, and notating it that way. So there's just like all these different ways of communicating the notes. And when you have a general understanding of the theory, it makes it very easy to talk to people with all different backgrounds of musical understanding. Because like some people have like a really robust knowledge of the circle of fifths and like they know how that stuff works. Some people like learned how to read sheet music in high school, but it didn't stick with them, and like they are learning stuff by ear, but they don't know how they're learning it by ear.
Right.
And so like being able to talk to everyone about music and like the actual inner workings of it is just so valuable and important to me.
And I think even just like the keyboard or the piano is just like the basis of everything.
Yeah.
Like, no songwriter is, I mean, some might, but like songwriters use a keyboard even if they're in a band that has nothing to do with a keyboard or a piano. Like, because everything's right there. It's tangible.
Yeah.
And like when I have, I've got probably fucking 10 keyboards in this room, but like because I'm not a piano player, I just write the notes in Sharpie right on it.
Right.
And it gets
the
even
job
just
done.
having that visual, like, sure, it's cheating or whatever.
It's not cheating.
But like it shows me where everything
Right.
is, and it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yes.
Like, how elementary can that be?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
But it really helps. Like, so anybody who has a piano or a keyboard in their house growing up, I just feel like they have a leg up.
Yes.
On
Yeah, again, because it's visual. So like when you're a kid and like your brain is developing, like you can look at it and you see like C, E, and G. You play that with your little hand, and then you say, okay, now a flat third. And like you see it visually, the E becomes an E flat, and it goes down a half step, and it's a half. Like you see visually what the half step means.
Yeah,
and then
even, like, the
everything
chord
else
structure,
just comes together. You
Yeah.
know, like it all clicks so much easier when you have that basis.
Yeah, and like, I mean, we didn't have a piano, but like my grandmother played the organ. And like, and had like the like little bossa nova beats
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
And, like, and I used to,
It's so fun.
I used to love, like, when I was
love
a
that
kid,
stuff.
like I would just like sit there for hours, and it had it was electronic, so I
Yeah.
could put headphones on
Right.
and not bother
Just, like,
any
vibe out.
adults.
Yeah.
And just like I used to like make so many songs with that organ. Like,
So fun.
I like literally forgot all about that.
I have
until
a
just now.
similar memory. My younger sister, we had this like Casio keyboard that had all these like built-in songs and like weird like sounds, and like one of them was like the Crocodile Rock, but it was like the Casio keyboard version. And we would like play DJ, and like one of us would like play the song on the keyboard, and the other then we would dance.
I remember, I told you we'd go off on tangents back at like, mid 80s or so. There was this little Casio keyboard that had come out. It was small. It was like the size of like a MIDI keyboard, but it had the ability to sample. So like you could hit record and then say something into the mic.
Whoa.
And then hit demo, and it would play a song, and everybody would always make like fart sounds and like, but it was still a keyboard.
Yeah.
And people were making noises with it.
Yeah.
Man, I just had some wild memories.
That's,
of like,
I know, yeah. I'm like that Casio keyboard with it had like 99 songs in it. Had like Beautiful Dreamer in it, Crocodile Rock. There's a bunch of
Was it one that
weird
like
things.
the keys lit up?
The keys didn't light up, but I have such a strong sense memory of like the rubbery, like going through like the library, of
the
like the
little buttons.
tones
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
songs and
Because
like
I
the
think
little
this one, the one that I'm
buttons.
talking about, because I remember it was like green sleeves. It had green sleeves.
I think we had that one too.
I'd be playing along with green, but like it had little like just like little LED lights above the keys that would show you
where to play.
Show you where to play.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
like,
This one I think had numbers over the keys, and like one of the the sample libraries in it was like just random percussion and have like a little picture of the percussion over the key if you set it to that, like the percussion sound.
I love it.
Yeah, so
But I mean, think
iconic.
of how many music careers started on a Casio
The thing
keyboard.
is that like giving kids like creative tools like
Yeah.
and letting them just be weird and creative is how you get artists.
For sure, especially the weird part, because I was a very weird child.
Me too.
And
I
like,
mean, and my parents were just so encouraging and accepting and like
mine not as much, but
Right.
you know, like, but it was a different time, you know. Like,
I think I lucked out too in that department. I think my parents are just like I just got really good parents.
yeah, and it's funny because like I've not as young as you, but I've been into music my entire music has always been, and literally not one single member of my immediate family has any musical anything, not one. There was I mean, not that they didn't encourage it, but they certainly didn't discourage it,
Right.
but like they weren't right there alongside with me, like
Right.
showing me how to do it. They
Right.
were more like, "Wow, how did you do that?" And I'm like,
Right.
I don't fucking know. I'm like,
I'm just winging it.
yeah, I'm 7 on a Casio keyboard. I was like, you ever watch Bob's Burgers? I was Gene.
Oh my
Belcher.
God.
Like when I was like 8 years old.
That's so funny.
That was
I can
that was
picture
me,
it.
yeah.
That's really cute.
Yeah, that
Oh
was
my
me.
god.
Like, and now I'm just now I'm
That's
now I'm
really
just Bob.
funny.
you know?
Oh my
Now I'm
god.
just Bob. So, we, I told you we get sidetracked. But I want you to. You said you were going to play some songs.
Yeah.
We were going to do a live performance later, but you were going to play something off a record.
Yeah.
A record. See, I told you.
I love calling it a record.
Good,
That's all right.
all right.
Even though I haven't even made CDs of it yet, it's a record
It's
in
a
my
record.
mind. Yeah.
I'll never stop calling them records.
Yeah. So we put out a record in September called Subject to Change. And I'm very proud of it. It's like some of my favorite music to listen to. And I think that that's important
I love that,
because
yeah.
like I think you should be making music that you like.
Yeah, I always thought that.
lot of
I always think
people
that's
are
weird
really
when
weird
people
about
don't
it.
listen. They're like, I don't listen
Yeah.
to my own music. I'm like, am I like
mean,
narcissistic? Because I
No,
love listening.
the thing is, for
like,
me, I'm like, my music is songs that I relate to the
Right,
most
right.
with all of the influences and music that
everything
I like.
that you want in a song
Like-
is right there.
Like,
you know?
why would I not
Yeah.
listen to it?
I'm with
Like,
ya.
I'm like, yeah, I relate to these lyrics so much.
I'm with you 100%.
Love that guitar tone. Like, why would I not listen to my music?
Yeah, it's perfect. Local musicians, take that advice.
Yeah,
Listen to
like,
your
make
own music.
that you want to hear. I always think of the Jillian Welch song where she says, if there's something that you want to hear, you can sing it yourself. And like that is like a mantra for me. So on that note, this song is called Hand Rolled. And yeah, it's one of my favorite songs I ever wrote.
All right. Well, let's check out Hand Rolled, Bell Curves, and then we'll be right back.
Watching someone else play Tuesday music on a Friday. Yeah, I wanna know when we were
that was Hand Rolled, The Bell Curves, and that was off an album that came out in September, you said,
Yes.
right? So, like, do those songs go back a ways? Like, do you let them sit before you record them? Or, like, how far back do the songs on that album go?
I think most of them. Well, it's kind of funny because I sat on that album for quite a while before releasing it. So it came out in September of 24, but I think it was done in like February before that. And I don't know why I do that. I think like my logical answer that I tell people is like, oh, I just want to have like a really solid release plan and like make sure that I have it all set up before doing it.
That is important.
But I think part of it really is letting it not be mine anymore is kind of like hard because like the songs are they're all from like my personal experiences and just like my life and like things that I've done and seen and felt. And so releasing them is kind of like now they're not mine alone anymore. And I don't have control over who hears them anymore.
Or what people are going to think of them.
Yeah.
Or of what they're going to perceive.
Right. So it's
about.
like when I'm sending my friends and like collaborators like my little private SoundCloud playlist and being like, the album's done. Like, what do you think? And it's like people who I know like my music. Half of them played on the album. But like it's very different to be like, hey, millions of strangers, what do you think about this? Like that's just like
Yeah.
so yeah, it's kind of scary to put out music, but it's also like once it's done it feels good because then people who I don't know very well or sometimes at all will reach out and be like, this song is like really important to me, or like I had someone a friend / fan of the band who heard the song Hand Rolled actually like 2 years ago probably, and she was like, when is that song coming out? Like I love that song. And like she had only heard it like once or twice like at a show and it just stuck with her, and like to hear that was so meaningful. So to answer your question, the songs had existed for quite a while before they got recorded, and I workshopped them a lot and like really fine-tuned a lot of the songwriting before we hit the studio. Got a bunch of like different songwriter friends to kind of give their 2 cents, and I like to have it like 90% done, but I always struggle with like the endings of songs, and I struggle to get out of the like verse chorus thing. So bringing it to like different songs to different songwriter friends is really helpful in kind of breaking up my own, like keeping my voice because the songs are mostly there, but kind of getting different little inflections.
Now, when if you said like it was like done in February, released in September, so like a full 7-month period, like when you, not close the door on it, but when when the project is done, do you look back on them and be like, oh, I could change this little thing?
Yeah.
Or
Always.
So is that, that's got to be fucking so hard to
It is.
deal with. Like,
I think though that
especially for
like
that long of a time.
yeah, I think that like that feeling is outweighed by how proud I am of this particular batch of songs. I think so. My dad and I recorded it at our home studio when we were living on Long Island. So it was like a really nice process to be able to like work really closely with my drummers and like really fine tune the drum parts, because I had worked on another project with a friend's band at Basement Floods with Alex Wernquist in Catskill, and like his process of like really honing in on the details of the drum parts was really inspiring to me. And so I kind of experimented with that and had like 2 different drummers play on the album and kind of like matched them with different songs and kind of what I felt like their strengths were. And so that was really fun. And then being able to build the tracks on top of that, like very kind of piece by piece, was really fun. So they have a live energy because we didn't use click tracks. It's a live drummer. And I would do like a guide track and the drummer would be in the studio. So they have this live feeling, but I was able to do so much detailed stuff and like really thinking about arrangement and like just little tiny details. And yeah, it was a very nice process.
And when you're, doing that, like adding like the details, our producer Dave Tayo calls it the salt and pepper. He's like, he'll say, project's done, you just got to add the salt and pepper.
Yeah.
Which is the details. But do you clearly do a lot of it yourself, but do you look at it like whole project wise, or do you take one song, focus on that, add like the details to that, and then move on?
I think that I'm pretty good at thinking about details and big picture simultaneously. Like that is something that makes me good in my day job. I'm also really good at jigsaw puzzles. So I basically, there were a few songs that we recorded after the first batch that we recorded. So we did like 5 at once and then we did another 4 separately. And I kind of did it like musician by musician. So like we got all the drums done. I would add the bass. So I played my bass track on top of that. And then like all of my acoustic guitar parts. And then that was kind of the like if you think of like baking a cake, that was kind of the main part of the cake
flour,
batter.
the
Yeah,
water,
that's
and
the
sugar.
flour, the eggs, the sugar, And then my dad did like the primary electric guitar parts on top of what's there. And then my friend Joe Leone was a big part of what I was really excited about on this record was a lot more keys on this album than have been. And we had piano and organ on the last album, but just like he and I just like holed up with him and his Nord in the studio for like 12 hours and just like went buck wild one night and like just like put so much stuff on. Most of it ended up staying. And so that was really cool. So then after that, we added like I had my friends Sarah and Sam, who are amazing vocalists. We did all the harmonies. So I kind of, I did it kind of like sound by sound. And then like once all of that stuff, that's kind of like the frosting is now on the cake. The cake is assembled and now we get to decorating it and kind of deciding like what stays, what can go, what are some extra little guitar bits we can add. Let's add like maybe let's edit this solo, like getting into that kind of stuff.
Do you find, and again, this is just like coming from we're recording an album now, my band is, but like I don't have a ton of experience like with the recording. And when we first started, the first song we ever did, like I was like, it's so important that everything that we do in the studio can be replicated live. So important. And then by the second song, I was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Let's add everything that we can to
Yeah.
this. And like, do you find that like the adding of the extra stuff is just like the funnest part of the process?
Absolutely.
Like,
I
really
love getting
do.
to that
Like,
point.
Yeah.
I really do. And it's funny you say that because I used to have a little bit of that feeling, but like I had like a really strong moment with Bob Dylan like a couple years ago. And the way that he reinterprets his songs is so inspiring to me. I had a friend say that Bob Dylan does his favorite Bob Dylan covers, because
Fair.
like when he can reimagine a song to be completely different, years down the road or on stage or whatever. And so like, there's just no rules. Like you could just do whatever you want. So like some of the songs, I think that like where we are right now as a band, like a lot of the songs sound pretty similar to the album versions, just like maybe without all of the extra sprinkles and decorations, but like the cake is there, but I also love playing solo and letting the songs be much more like bare bones and experimenting with different dynamic points and like
And when you
yeah.
write the songs, do you like kind of get the shell of it? Like, are you writing a song mostly on a acoustic guitar and then imagining the bass lines and the drums? And
Yeah, pretty much. At least that's kind of my process for the bell curves. I'm interested in trying some kind of experimenting with different processes for getting to the finished point. But I think as it relates to the bell curve specifically, that is the process. I like to have like pretty polished power pop or, alt country or whatever the song is evolving into. Let it be nearly done and then bring it to the band, and maybe some new arrangement stuff comes up with them. But yeah, for the most part, it's like I'm playing it myself and like getting it to completion so that I can play it solo and the song can still stand on its own,
Yeah, and again, I love my producer compared it to like a movie and a play.
Yeah.
Like the movie, you take your time, you get every little detail, and if you get something wrong, you go back and fix it, and then you present it. Whereas like, a live performance is a play.
Yeah.
And I personally like love not mistakes, but like what could be perceived as an
patina.
imperfection. Yeah, like to me, I love a recorded version of a completely live performance with something that goes wrong.
Yeah.
Like I love it because then it becomes specifically that one thing.
Yeah.
And a song can have millions of iterations. You know what I mean? If you recorded a song every time you played it, it's that song,
Right.
version 1.1, version 1.2, and I love the difference.
Yeah,
So,
I love that analogy too, because like when you are writing for a play versus writing for a movie, like they're different mediums.
right.
They are different forms. Like they're closely related, but they're different
Totally
things.
different rules,
You
too,
know?
Yeah.
And I think that totally applies. And like the Belkers have a bunch of live recordings. We have some stuff up on YouTube, and we did one at Pete's Candy Store a few years ago. And we'll probably have another one at some point from the last year or so of shows. We've gotten a bunch of really, really nice multi-tracked live shows. And exactly what you're saying. It's just so cool to have this slight variation. Like we have this version of one of our songs called Topo Chico. And in the studio version, like when the band kicks in, it speeds up slightly. There's a little bit of tempo fluctuation going into the chorus, and it's just like live and juicy. But we did this one version that I'm so glad we got recorded, because when the drummer comes in, it just like the train rolls down the hill and it speeds up so much, and it's so cool and organic and cathartic, and I just like love that moment so much. Yeah. So.
It makes me think of dating myself again, but when MTV was putting out the Unplugged albums, and every single band that were like in my
On your
late
radar.
teen mind,
Yeah.
untouchable, like just these perfect musicians. Every single band that was on there made mistakes.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. And
They're
it was
people.
like, huh,
They're just
okay.
people.
And like, I wasn't like, ooh, shame. I was
Right.
like, I fucking love that.
Yeah.
Because that means they're not, they're
Yeah.
not perfect.
They're
and
just some guys with guitars.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I just love that. Like,
do too.
even on the Nirvana Unplugged, like he fucks up the words.
Right.
There's like microphone feedback. There's like all this stuff. And it's like, love
It's
it.
just deliciously
Yeah.
imperfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you brought your guitar and your amp, and you were going to play a song live in the studio, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a good segue into this one, because this is one of the ones that has a lot of studio trickery, or it's a studio song, the recording of it. But like again, I think that as a stripped down like alt folk song, it has a different thing to say.
Cool. And what's the name of this one?
The song is called Pour Over.
Pour Over. All right. Well, let's listen to Pour Over live here in the studio, and then we'll be right back to wrap it up.
Mother's been telling me that I should get some rest. Lover's been telling me not to let it get my best. I keep saying, yeah, you're right. I keep saying yes. Easier said than done. Easier done than dressed. Father says mother's right. She's really up on things. Father with something good, baby, you can pull some strings. I make time out of whole cloth, work and left my days. I make time out of whole cloth, I could be my own holiday. When I'm alone under my quilt, when I'm relieving my own guilt, I watch my breakfast seep through paper into clay. What if I got to lose? 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 I make time out of whole cloth, workman left my days. I make time out of whole cloth, I could be my own holiday. When I'm alone under my quilt, when I'm relieving my own guilt, I watch my breakfast seep through paper into clay. I make time out of whole cloth. I make time out of whole cloth. I make time out of whole cloth.
All right, that was Pour Over live here in the studio. And Delaney, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to come out and do this, to bring your guitar and play a song. And it was a great conversation. So thank you so much. And before we go, like I do with all my guests, I want to give you a chance to say what I call your gratitudes. So microphone's all yours.
Well, I'll say thanks to you first for letting me blab so much and just yap endlessly.
Loved it.
I think obviously I have to shout out my parents, Bill and Kathy. Obviously Bill, my guitar player and co-pilot, my number one. And everyone that played on the album. So that's Fred and Nick and Joe and Sam and Sarah and Lauren. And I think that's everyone. And me. I'm grateful to me too. And yeah, that's probably otherwise if I keep going I'll keep going, so
Fair. All right, well, she is Delaney Hafener of the Belle Curves. I am Andy Scullin. This is Unsigned 518. I'll see you on the road. Unsigned 518 is produced and hosted by me, Andy Scullin. New episodes are available every week wherever you stream podcasts. If you would like to help support the show, please like and subscribe wherever you are listening, or you could buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/unsigned518. If you would like to advertise on the show, send me an email at unsigned518@gmail.com. And to be a guest on the show, reach out to me through Instagram at unsigned518. Take care of one another, and I'll see you next week.